Welcome to TNN's daily headline and prophecy news with your host and angel of truth, Joan of Arc. Joan will be sharing truth-filled, hard-hitting factual news on a daily basis covering the topics of health, financial, geopolitical issues, and more. So please join Joan as she covers the news in these prophetic times. And remember, the truth shall set you free. We also want to introduce you to our friends at Divine Source Solutions, your divine source for health, prosperity and spiritual growth. They are a diverse group of believers, pastors, doctors, social workers, teachers, public servants, business owners, parents, Native American tribal leaders and more. United by their shared faith in a loving God. Whether you are dealing with health issues, lost a job, losing a home, food scarcity concerns or struggling to prosper financially, they will partner with you to create a workable solution based on your current situation. They share our belief here at Trinity News Network, that there are no governmental or political solutions to the problems we are facing in this fallen world. So their health and prosperity care ministries were created to coach you with spiritually and professionally based real-life solutions to stay healthy and prosper in these difficult times. You may choose to achieve this through a combination of attending their self-paced 52-week video blog Bible study series, online sermons through Fire and Grace Church, free health coaching and weight management guidance, prayer assistance, additional daily headline and prophecy news and more. You can reach out to them at www.divinesourcesolutions.org. We are also proud of our friends at the Support Local Foundation and their humanitarian efforts in restoring health and prosperity, one community at a time. Their local featured small business owners are offering simple local solutions to complex problems in a community near you. So check them out at www.supportlocalfoundation.org. So here's your host and angel of truth, Joan of Arc.
Hello, this is Joan of Arc, your host and angel of truth with Trinity News Network, where the truth shall set you free. Welcome and thanks for joining me on this Thursday, January 5th, 2023. So, let's get started on the latest with foreign policy in the news. Energy wars. When the US-UK axis blew up the Nord Stream pipelines in September, it marked the opening salvo in the energy wars. We could potentially see escalation on all fronts. All pipelines are now military targets, and we might also see a return to the 1980s-style tanker wars. For the West, this is all part and parcel of their ongoing effort to turn Europe westward and disrupt China's Belt and Road Initiative, thus achieving victory in the Great Game 2.0. However, if you can't lead, then you can only play the role of geopolitical spoiler. In this way, the Western powers have been reduced to the role of saboteurs. Despite sanctions, the Russian ruble still bounced back, hitting record highs, and Russian oil and gas revenues have almost doubled from 2020-2021. Artificial scarcity due to Western government policies will result in a spike in oil prices to $150 per barrel, and more pain at the pump for people living in G7 countries. The reaction of the Anglo-American axis is to double down on what they are presently doing, in hopes of destroying the Russian and Chinese economies, and with any luck, regime change in Moscow and Beijing. If that means a wider war, then the powers that shouldn't be seen prepared to take that risk so long as they can control and steer events. The Anglo-American war on energy markets and subsidies of the faux green energy boondoggle will eventually result in pushing oil over $120 per barrel, which will only compound the artificial scarcity crisis we are seeing now. European and North American economies will not benefit from the instability, and if a wider war breaks out, then they will be even more devastated, as they continue to be hit with even higher energy prices, more energy rationing and rolling blackouts throughout the G7 and EU blocs. EU rolling blackouts? Yes, they're coming in 2023, as major industrial firms like BASF and others flee the EU rip-off zone. The deindustrialization of Germany, and possibly France too, now beckons. It didn't need to happen, but watch them continue to blame their woes on Putin. So, Let's get started on the latest with health policy in the news. Who do you trust for your food? As the techno prophecies today are being proven to be mostly pure fantasy, not based on anything real, and as we face the imminent collapse of our financial system drawing closer each day to the Great Reset, it is important that we learn from the mistakes these false beliefs that have propped up modern society have made, so that those who survive the difficult times we are now heading into can begin to rebuild society on things that are true and lasting. And one of the most pressing needs is to decentralize food production, breaking our society's slavery to big food and their technology, where just a handful of technocrats among the billionaires and bankers control most of the world's food today, food that is contaminated and poisonous. A return to local decentralized food production is necessary. So if you are not producing your own food, allowing God to bless you directly by trusting in His steadfast love, you have to enter into agreements with others to produce the food on your behalf. You make this agreement every time you spend your money on food. Do the people and companies that you hire to supply your food understand that food is a blessing from our loving God? Or do they believe in the evolution foundation and trust in the strength and technology of man? The answer is not so easy to know sometimes, because the food might start out being produced by farmers who might believe and understand that they are dependent upon God, but then the food gets passed on to other manufacturers who alter and improve upon it along the way before it ends up in a store somewhere where you can purchase it. It is no surprise that farmers' markets have become increasingly more popular over the past several years. More and more people want to know where their food comes from, and to buy it in as close to its original, fresh condition as possible. Many communities today could be mostly sustained by local food sources, but people choose instead to go the more convenient and cheap route and put their faith in mass-produced industrialized foods instead. The food they purchase in grocery store supermarkets may have traveled thousands of miles before it landed on the shelves of their local supermarket. But if you are uncomfortable about the fact that so few people in the US today supply the food chain to us, there is something you can do about it. Enter into other agreements with your food purchases, and hire the people you want to supply your food. It is the only way we will ever get more small-scale and in many cases family-based producers back into food production. Cheap junk food made by the technocrats is cheap for a reason, and Americans spend the least amount of their income on food than any other nation in the world. Do your research and find ways to support those who are concerned about the quality of the food they produce, and not just the quantity and profit. It will take some extra effort on your part, but who do you trust for your food? If you trust in the major industrial suppliers in the market today, the technocrats, what will you do when you go to the store and the shelves are bare because their technology has failed? So, let's get started on the latest with economy in the news. Derailing of the climate gravy train. In 2022, we saw the initial stages of the climate change gravy train beginning to stall. As the global economy stalls, and green, controlled opposition mobs press on to try and stop fossil fuels, the millions of people who are freezing and going bankrupt due to extortionate faux green energy policies and UN 2030 Sustainable Development Goals are now starting to fight back, and many are now asking to see evidence, other than the UN complicated computer-modeled projections, that the planet is already doomed, and that sea levels are somehow going to rise and drown us all into oblivion. Ditto for the constant extreme weather fearmongering. Just one too many doomsday prophecies which never came true. As the green agenda continues to bankrupt Western economies, watch as more people of note challenge its increasingly shaky science. Once the sane sober up and lose faith in the gospel of Saint Greta of Thunberg, then expect mature adults to start questioning the hundreds of billions of public money being plowed into the new green economy, and all the proposed carbon taxes that go along with it. Not to mention the start of climate lockdowns in the UK and elsewhere, a level of folly which is sure to reap a massive backlash against an increasingly insane climate cult. Watch this gravy train begin to stall in 2023. Smart people are beginning to realize that entire climate cult is based on two primary concepts. Firstly, that mankind is emitting CO2, which is heating up the Earth's atmosphere, which will make the planet uninhabitable. The second idea is an older one, and traditionally popular with elites. The idea that there are just too many people on the planet and more people equals an existential threat to human survival, which lends to an elite proclivity towards eugenics. If you actually look at real science, and not ideologically based scientism, you'll soon learn that both of those core beliefs are not true at all. Quite the opposite. Back in 1970, Stanford professor Paul Ehrlich published a famous book, The Population Bomb, in which he described a disastrous future for humanity. The battle to feed all of humanity is over. In the 1970s and 1980s, hundreds of millions of people will starve to death in spite of any crash programs embarked upon now. Of course, that alarmist prediction turned out to be totally false, and it's now clear based on census data that the United States is heading toward the opposite problem: not enough people. For decades now, many countries have been unable to sustain a basic population replacement birth rate, including in Western Europe, South Korea, Japan, and, most ominously, China and India. The societal and social impacts of this phenomenon are vast, and still no one is talking about it. So, let's get started on the latest with natural health in the news. Healthy detoxification starts with a healthy microbiome. Before jumping into a new detox, it's important to consider the health and integrity of the gut. Adequately preparing your body to handle the increase of toxins that are mobilized during a detox often requires a bit of work. Everybody's into detox these days, because there are some real benefits when it's done right. But before you jump into detox, a very important thing to consider is the health and integrity of the gut. Remember, all the toxins drawn out of the tissues have to go somewhere, and where they eventually end up is the intestinal tract. So before you decide on your detox protocol, the first question to answer is, how healthy is your gut? Adequately preparing your body to handle the increase of toxins that will be mobilized during a detox often requires a bit of preparation in terms of making sure the gastrointestinal system is functioning optimally with healthy GI flora and a strong barrier. Ensuring the integrity of the gut is optimized prior to embarking on a cleanse or detox program will decrease the avenues for toxin reabsorption and help ensure toxin elimination. The goal is to decrease the overall body burden of toxins, not recycle them. We know that environmental toxins can disrupt bacterial balance for sure, but detoxification protocols have their own additional impact on intestinal microbiota. That's why a week or so of good GI support and robust bacterial replenishment with good probiotics can improve the efficacy of a detoxification program. We each have nearly 10 pounds of bacteria in our gut that serve to support the digestion of food, synthesize B vitamins and vitamin K, inhibit non-beneficial bacteria, stimulate and modulate the immune system, maintain mucosal barrier integrity and metabolize toxins of all kinds. A healthy microbiome does an awesome job of detoxification. Probiotics can help support the natural detoxification processes during any specific protocol, as well as on an ongoing basis. In addition, probiotics help support healthy bacterial balance, which helps reduce the risk of the occasional intestinal disturbances that may take place during detoxification. And, did you know that there are special probiotic formulas specifically designed for detox? According to a 2013 review featured in the journal Current Nutrition and Food Science, a significant body of evidence indicates that probiotics regulate intestinal epithelial homeostasis by promoting cell survival and barrier function, improving intestinal microbial ecology and regulating mucosal immune function. This is especially important during a detox. A 2014 randomized open-label pilot study published in the journal MBio demonstrated that a probiotic yogurt product infused with Lactobacillus rhamnosus GR1, LGR1, had a positive health-supporting effect in pregnant women exposed to mercury. A 2018 study published in Gut Microbes also used LGR1 with similar results. The researchers concluded that LGR1 may offer a simple and effective means to reduce the amount of heavy metals absorbed from foods in contaminated regions of the world. Whether you advocate for a periodic cleanse or daily detoxification, a healthy GI system and a healthy microbiome are step one, and probiotics can play a supportive role in healthy detoxification. So, let's get started on the latest with prophecy in the news. Christianity is disappearing from home of its birth, author says. Declining faith presence in Bethlehem is the systematic persecution of Christian Arabs. Christianity is in danger of disappearing from the place of its birth, Bethlehem, according to a warning from author Raymond Ibrahim, a Gateston Institute Distinguished Senior Fellow and a Shillman Fellow at the David Horowitz Freedom Center. Just over 2 weeks ago, a Muslim man was accused of harassing young Christian women at a Forefathers Orthodox church in Beit Sa'awa near the city of Bethlehem. Soon after, the church was attacked by a large mob of Palestinian men who hurled rocks at the building while congregants cowered inside. Several of the congregants were injured in the attack, he reported. The Palestinian Authority is responsible for security there, and did nothing. He writes at the Institute's web page that a new report has confirmed a marked uptick in religiously motivated attacks by Palestinian Muslims on Christians in Bethlehem. He explained in October, gunmen shot at the Christian-owned Bethlehem Hotel, but there were no arrests. Perhaps the greatest shock to the community came in April when the Palestinian evangelical pastor, Johnny Shawan, was arrested by the Palestinian Authority security forces on charges of promoting normalization with Israel, he explained. Then there have been attacks by masked men carrying iron bars on Christian brothers Daud and Deir Nasser, another example that the persecution of Palestinian Christians is a long-standing problem. Explained Rabbi Pesach Wolitsky of the Center for Jewish-Christian Understanding and Cooperation. Unfortunately, these recent attacks against churches are not new. Christians have been under attack in Bethlehem for many, many years. There have been bombings. There are near constant physical attacks against Christians. They're going on a regular basis, ever since the Palestinian Authority took over. Kamal Tarazi, a Christian, used to live in the Gaza Strip, but then Hamas took over. They started persecuting us, ruining our churches and forcing Christians to convert to Islam, he said. Ibrahim noted that in 1947, Christians were 85% of the population of Bethlehem. By 2016, that was down to 16%. Eustace Reed Weiner, a lawyer, noted in Ibrahim's report, in a society where Arab Christians have no voice and no protection, it is no surprise that they are leaving. The systematic persecution of Christian Arabs living in Palestinian areas is being met with nearly total silence by the international community, human rights activists, the media and NGOs. Ibrahim explained, Open Doors, a human rights organization that follows the persecution of Christians, reports that Palestinian Christians suffer from a high level of persecution. That organization has reported, those who convert to Christianity from Islam, however, face the worst Christian persecution, and it is difficult for them to safely participate in existing churches. In the West Bank they are threatened and put under great pressure. In Gaza their situation is so dangerous that they live the Christian faith in utmost secrecy. The influence of radical Islamic ideology is rising, and historical churches have to be diplomatic in their approach towards Muslims. Ibrahim said, the bread and butter of the PA and its supporters, particularly in the media, is to portray Palestinians in general as victims of unjust aggression and discrimination from Israel. This narrative would be jeopardized if the international community learned that it is Palestinian Muslims who are persecuting their fellow Palestinian Christians, solely on account of religion. It might be hard to muster sympathy for a professedly oppressed people when one realizes that they themselves are doing the oppressing of the minorities in their midst, and for no other reason than religious bigotry. For more information related to Bible study support, getting closer to God, staying healthy, food scarcity solutions and more, visit our friends at www.divinesourcesolutions.org.
Thanks again for tuning in with us at TNN's Daily Headline and Prophecy News with your host and angel of truth, Joan of Arc. Please join Joan every weekday, Monday through Friday, as she continues to cover hard-hitting, truth-filled news topics in these prophetic times. And remember, the truth shall set you free.